Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. I don't think there's any audience, but do you have any comments? How about corrections to the agenda or consent calendar? Seeing none, I will move that we adopt the consent calendar.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And that motion passes unanimous.
And we are now going to open a public hearing regarding the Tahoe Creek Sewer Pipeline Protection Project. Hello, Evo.
Extremely quick. Good afternoon, board members. So item 6A involves two actions. The first is to hold a public hearing, and the other one involves authorization of bid. So I prepared the following presentation. I don't know if it's up on the screens. Or let me just start this.
We have our paper.
There you go. So that you can see it now.
Oh, first I have to cue it up. Here we go.
Okay. So this is a brief presentation that I put together to briefly summarize the project need, what the project involves, and then talk about findings that this project is substantially complex. Under CEQA, when a public agency approves to implement a project, the agency may make a determination whether the project is exempt from CEQA. I pointed out in the agenda item that a CEQA determination for this project has already been made. During 2017, this project was evaluated as an action, part of the Timber and Flack restoration project. So it was evaluated by the Lahontan Regional Board in its CEQA initial study for that project, and they made issued a determination of no significant effect for the project. So I don't believe that you need to make another determination about the project as far as notice of exception. Correct me if I'm wrong here. I will. So item 6A again involves holding a public hearing. And then after that, we're requesting authorization to start the bid process for this project. So the project needs, the upper picture here in the upper left, this is aerial view shot in March, this March. Here's the sewer pipeline crossing. This is south towards Flat Creek, and so that's upstream, and here's the downstream side out towards Lake Tahoe. This would be the east bank, and this is the west bank. So the project involves the construction of a rock grade control structure that would go in this area right here within the stream to provide permanent protection to the sewer pipeline crossing presently exposed in Flat Creek. As you know, Flat Creek is tributary to Lake Tahoe, which is one of two federally designated outstanding natural resource waters in the U.S. and the United States. So it has heightened water quality standards than most other water bodies within our country. The sewer pipeline crossing is also, the crossing itself is located up 800 feet upstream of Lake Tahoe and about 500 feet west of Baldwin Beach. Baldwin Beach is one of the premier recreation areas in the South Shore. The sewer pipeline crossing was constructed in 1971, and it was done to convey raw sewage from the residences and Eagle Creek campground area located west of Flat Creek to the Baldwin Beach pump station. Here's I don't know if it shows up, if you can see it on your projector, but this is a hydrograph showing the elevation of Lake Tahoe, and this red line is the top of the concrete encasement. So this is, the hydrograph goes back, I believe, to the time that that line was installed. It goes back actually to 1968. And so all these periods where lake level drops below the top of the concrete encasement, that line was exposed, or is exposed. Most recently, one of the most recent cycles was in 2014, and this is this time right here. And this was when it was first brought to the district's attention by the U.S. Forest Service, inquiring about if we were the owners of this thing that's crossing Flat Creek. And so we fessed up to it and we said, yes, we are. And we took responsibility for it. And we sandbagged it to protect that line from being undermined by erosion. Started work on that project at that time. And since that time, in 2015, lake levels rose in response to greater precipitation. We had that big water year in 2017, and that's this big increase right here, this big jump in lake level elevation. And over the period that the lake level was above that crossing, we've been monitoring that crossing, and we've been developing plans and working with the Forest Service with the Taylor Flat Restoration Project on the next time when it would be emergent again and when site conditions were optimal for doing the long-term protected project. And that's what this project is. One thing that we did learn over the last 7 years is that we did some hydraulic analysis, and we found that looking at the hydraulic analysis, the sewer crossing is at greatest risk of erosion during low lake level elevations. So this bottom plot is this is a survey profile. So this is from the east bank going to the west. Oh, I'm sorry. This is upstream going downstream across that encasement. So it's oriented basically in channel across the encasement. And this little bump kind of looks like a little camel hump is the concrete encasement. Now, as you see, there's a big drop in the profile immediately downstream of that, the encasement. So, and that's a scour hole that's formed immediately downstream and below the concrete encasement. And it's at a depth now of about 2 feet below the bottom of the concrete encasement. And that scour hole formed at this, pretty much, we believe, at this point, when the transition happened, when the lake level dropped below the top of the concrete encasement, because that's the period where water is spilling over it, and you're getting most undermining of that stream bed immediately in front of that. Now, one thing that's also interesting, again, I mentioned we put sandbags in front of this thing in 2014. We sandbagged it a second time when it was emergent, when it just started to be emergent before the storms, or in September of 2021, and then right before the big storm started rolling in at the end of, or in November, December, we sandbagged it again. And you can see from these surveys that those sandbags are not there anymore. So they just got wiped out after that first flush event of that last storm. So the sandbags that we put in 2014 were probably not very effective. So something to keep in mind there. Another thing is that as far as site risk, this crossing was one of the 178 crossings which were inspected by Cardinal Intrex, and their engineers ranked this, I think it was number 4 of the 178 crossings as far as site risk, as being very high due to degree of exposure, the undercutting, and then stress cracks that they found being or developed in the concrete encasement itself. So what does this project look like? I kind of broke it down into 5 different components. Let me just get you oriented. Here's Lake Tahoe, Black Creek. We've got Black Creek. Here's the work area. This is the Baldwin Beach parking area, and we plan on staging equipment and materials at the west end of the Baldwin Beach parking area. The first task that we have is to set up a construction road so that we have access to the work site to Black Creek. The second thing is we need to prepare the work site area. So here's a blow-up of what the work site area kind of looks like as far as on the plans. We'll be installing upstream and downstream barriers to isolate that work area from further flow. We'll need to relocate any fish that's trapped within the work area. Then we'll need to dewater that section of Black Creek, and then we can start doing the in-stream construction. And the in-stream construction would be excavation of the existing stream bed, and then installation of a rock-rated control structure. And here's a cross-section of what that structure looks like. Here's the upstream end of it, and it has a very long, kind of low-slope downstream end, and that is to basically make it passable by fish at high waters. And then the last component is site restoration. So that would be removal of all the temporary barriers and temporary access road, as well as revegetation and decompaction of the access road. This is crossing a large wetland area to get to the creek itself. The estimated cost of the project is about $284,000. So, is this project substantially complex? Well, staff has made a determination that based on the criteria that's been approved by the board in the resolution 2904-12, it is for the following reasons. First, that proper installation of the grade control structure really cannot be confirmed until after the structure is completed. Secondly, the project is being constructed within an environmentally sensitive area. And third, that conduct of the work requires authorization from multiple federal and state agencies, which each of those permits have a complex set of permit conditions under which the work will need to be conducted. Here's a list of permitting. Permit application packages for this work went out at the end of March, and we're working with these agencies to get these things completed so that we can start work after Labor Day. So we have permits into Forest Service, Army Corps of Engineers, Lahontan Regional Board, California Division of Fish and Wildlife, and TRPA. And so far, everybody seems to be working with us. I think they all recognize the need for this project, and we're all working so that we can get this project started after Labor Day. So if you were to approve item 6A, the schedule for bid would look like this. Today we have authorization to bid. We're still working on the contract documents. We will have these out or completed in the next couple of weeks and ready to advertise for bids on the 16th. We're looking at doing an on-site pre-bid conference and site walk on the 23rd. The end of the month, the 30th, will be the last day for questions. We have a bid opening 2 weeks later, and then we would bring it to the board at the second regular meeting in July. So that's it. We have to answer any questions from the board.
Any questions, anybody?
So it's already designed, we've got the design layout and ready to go.
Yes.
Is that who did the design on this?
Brett Wolf from Northwest Hydraulics has been a design consultant on this since 2014.
Is this a gravity main or force main?
It's gravity.
Do you anticipate any additional costs associated with this? It looks to me like that is pretty low.
I've given Brent a few swings at this, to update the costs, and that's what he's telling me. So we'll find out.
Guarantee?
What?
Guarantee?
We'll see what it comes in at, and hopefully we'll get some interest from local contractors.
And then what's the duration of the actual construction?
We're looking at, we're trying to get it done. We have to, our constraints are start after Labor Day and complete by October 15th. So we're going to work within that schedule, and the way that it plays out, we're looking at 25 working days.
You don't have any permitting timeline concerns at all with any of those agencies?
Of course.
Well, I mean, all, but I guess I put more to the question is, like, which is the most concerning to you? From a timeline perspective?
The core.
Yeah, they're good guess. I've been, we're in regular, we've had a number of conversations with Lahontan during the course of this, and we know what they're looking for from us. We've submitted it in March. They've reviewed it. They give us the feedback. We're ready now to answer that feedback and provide those kind of loose ends that they have questions on. Haven't heard anything from the Army Corps of Engineers. I've reached out to them, and I'm not certain if that's good news or bad news, but that's probably the greatest uncertainty now. Been working with the Forest Service. TRPA is working closely with the Forest Service on this timber flat restoration project, so they're tied in. And I know Shannon quite a long time, and I know she's doing her work on this thing. So. And CDFW has they also are time limited as the amount of time that they have to spend on this permit. So again, the one that's kind of still open most is Army Corps.
Is there any, do you have to replace the sewer line as part of the project, or is it just merely just stabilizing the area?
Right now it's to get it in and out of the crews.
Anything else?
Okay.
Just going to public hearing first.
Oh, yes. Public hearing is closed. Does anyone have any comments?
Did we receive any comments otherwise?
It seems like a great project. Yeah. Long time coming. Yeah.
Okay, so I think now you need to make a finding that the project is substantially complex and give us authorization to move forward and solicit construction bids for the project.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did.
And that motion passes unanimously. There we go.
Okay, that moves us to 6B, Seed Fund Sierra's wastewater treatment plant solar project. Julie's taking us via phone.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yeah.
Am I really loud?
Turning it down, Julie, I'm turning it down.
That's jarring. Well, I'm sorry that I'm not able to be there in person today because this is another one of those board items that's quite a while in coming. I was last before the whole board talking about the solar project for the wastewater treatment plant last October. At that point in time, we were working with Core and ProStar team on a power purchase agreement, and the board authorized staff to go ahead and finalize that PPA, resolving some of the remaining terms of it, and then move forward with the project. In the intervening 7 months or so, we've been continuing to work with Core and ProStar to try and hammer out some of those remaining terms. The biggest terms that were standing in our way were the actual price for the power purchase agreement, as well as concerns that we had over the cost of construction. You may remember that this has been a concern of ours all along, that the anticipated cost to construct the array that were being presented by Core and ProStar were not really in alignment with what our expectations are for the cost to build a project of this size. What we're looking at is a 1.4 megawatt DC array, ground mount array that would be built behind the wastewater treatment plant in that forested area to the east of the plant. Based on input that we have received from Optimy, who is the consultant that the district has been working with over the course of the last couple of years, we were expecting to see cost of construction for an array of this size in the range of $3.5 to $4 million. Well, Core and ProStar, they were anticipating costs more in the range of $6 million. So there was just something that didn't quite sit right in our brains, and also with a construction cost that high, that actually does have an impact on some of the terms of the power purchase agreement, primarily the termination values that get written in to the agreement. So while we were working through all this with Core and ProStar, we were also speaking with Optimy and trying to find out if we had other options still. You know, we had selected Core and ProStar through a request for proposals, where we had received numerous proposals. There were 3 really that had floated to the top through that process. And so Optimy, on our behalf, reached out to the other 2 teams to see if they still had interest in engaging with the district on this project. One of those did respond. That was Staten. And so since about April, we have been working with Staten on updating their proposal information at the same time while we've been trying to resolve things with Core and ProStar. So over the course of the last month or so, we have received updated proposals from Staten, as well as from Core and ProStar. And the memo that I attached to the agenda item today really kind of goes into detail on what we have received from both teams. The biggest standout is that the PPA pricing is really not very different between what Core and ProStar have been offering and what Staten is currently offering. The biggest difference is in the anticipated cost of construction. Staten anticipates that construction of this array is going to cost $3.465 million, so right in line with the industry standards for cost, whereas Core and ProStar is at $6.2 million. The Staten proposal has a pretty significant sweetener that the Core ProStar proposal does not. Staten has been very conservative in their estimates of what how much power this array will produce. And so what they have said is the price that they are offering us, 12.65 cents per kilowatt hour, that is the price they will charge us up to the first 1.9 million kilowatt hours produced per year. If their array produces more than that, which we think it is very likely that it will in a normal year, then they will only charge us half of 12.65 cents, so 6.32 cents per kilowatt hour for any power that's produced above that 1.9 million kilowatt hour mark. So there's no sweetener of any similarity in the Core proposal, and so that really makes this Staten proposal stand out. And then finally, one significant difference with the Staten proposal is that they have given us written confirmation that the price that they have offered us will hold to the signing of the PPA if we can get the PPA executed in August. And so we are already putting a meeting on the calendar to start discussions with Staten, pending board approval today, so that we can make that timeline and return to you in August with a resolution and a PPA for authorization. So what I'm asking today is basically for board to give staff direction to go ahead and switch teams. And I'd be happy to field any questions if you have any about where we're at.
Say, Julie, Dave here. I'll ask a question that I asked you in an email, but I kind of wanted you to go over it with the whole board. Do we have, did we commit to any of their sunk costs through our earlier authorization?
I'm going to let Gary field that one. Since you might have noticed when I responded to your question, it was very legalese. So speak to that better.
Sure. Yeah, there was a letter of intent, non-binding letter of intent executed between SSI, the financier who would actually own the project, and Core and ProStar. The district was not a party to that. The district acknowledged its existence. And that agreement between the two didn't include, even between the parties to it, did not include any requirement to reimburse them for some costs during the development. So the answer, in my opinion, is no, we have not committed any commitment to financially reimburse anyone for their work on the project.
Thank you.
I'd say just to that point, that was something that weighed on Shane and I pretty heavily. I think we talked about it at length at the meeting. For very obvious reasons, I think it was really important because, time after, this whole, existence brings them forward. And I'll just speak for me and, not for anyone else, but what I believe was conveyed or kind of agreed upon was the time delays were as a result of their lack of performance. And so, simple analogy, if you're working on your house and someone shows up the next day with a group of people that are ready to work, that's what Satin did. The core ProStar team were like, oh, I'll get back to you next week. You guys come in 2 weeks after that. And they just never materialized. And so a lot of that sunk cost, I would say, was solely the result of their ability to perform.
I'll provide a couple more comments. The Satin team seemed much more responsive when we asked questions, or they had information, they reached out very quickly. They did they had their people out at the site, they had people looking at the districts where the connections would be. They've been extremely responsive in how fast they moved. They have seen the template PPA that we had negotiated with SSI, and there's obviously going to be some tweaks to it to adjust it for them. But by and large, they said the PPA was satisfactory. They also have, I think the other thing that gave us cover, and Julie touched on this, is the price for construction is in line with not only what Optimi believe that the cost should be, but also the district's consultant, HDR, is in their experience. We've never been able to understand how Core ProStar were going to need to spend $6 million for the project. It just didn't make sense on a cost per kilowatt hour. The other thing that gave us comfort in Stanton was they have experience here. They did the project for the city at the airport, so they have experience working here. They have experience in how well the panels perform in this environment. So putting all that together with them coming out with a proposal that is likely better because of what Julie mentioned, the 50% discount over the guaranteed power production. I think it made us, as far as staff and legal, feel a lot more comfortable with their capabilities and analysis of the system that they're proposing than with Core and ProStar. The other thing that was a little bit frustrating with Core and ProStar, we have had during the course of working with them 3 different project managers on the job, and that's caused. It contributed, I think, to things dragging out longer than what we had anticipated.
No more questions here.
Well, one, it begs the question, why didn't we pick Stanton in the first place? And, I was always skeptical of solar companies. But I don't know why we didn't pick them in the first place.
Yeah, so I can shed a little light on that if you like. So kind of going back to 2020, that RFP process, it was part of a much larger collaboration between the district and the city of South Lake Tahoe, but also Alpine County, the Truckee Airport, the school district in Grass Valley, and we all had participants scoring the proposals. Core and ProStar's proposal was very thorough and professional, and they brought one thing to the table that the other teams didn't, which was a very extensive team of local participants, from the permitting, the design, the construction, and that was very appealing, particularly to those of us in the Tahoe Basin. We thought that was an important factor that made this team shine. So not only was their price slightly better than Stanton's at that time, but this sort of like local participation. But there's nothing to be said, or there's sorry, I'm stumbling a little bit. There's a little feedback. the importance of having an experienced solar team, I think, is really shining through as we've kind of walked ourselves through this process of the last year and a half. And to Gary's point, just immediately talking with Staten on the details of the project, now that we know more, it's clear that they're going to bring that expertise to the table that's been lacking.
Okay, thanks.
I mean, I really think it's like we went through the process, what it was, kind of going through that, like any project you've ever done. You have that initial estimate, right? And then all of a sudden you start asking more questions and you start to see this a bit. Like, okay, why can't we nail this down? And then as we start to engage with another partner with local experience, those numbers are in line with what we expect, meets like certainty within their proposal immediately. It was, I mean, again, speaking for myself, as we went through it, it was really obvious, like immediately, to all the reasons Gary cited, just to the point, to responsive, guarantees, in line with everything you expect it to be. You know what I'm saying? Like checking all the boxes. Well, why I dragged on for so long with Core and Pro Stars, because we could never get there. We were always having these conversations in like every meeting, and then they would kind of, pull the ball a little bit from us. And so, thankfully, to staff's credit, started investigating other options. And again, it was night and day instantly.
Okay. I shall remain skeptical.
I think we all are, I think we're learning as we go through this, and we've learned a lot for the last year. I think, basically what I've seen so far coming from Staten, it seems like they're nailing it. They're hitting it, all the targets that we've identified, all the things that we want to see in this thing. I think ultimately the numbers are starting to shape up. It's going to, not only do the right thing in terms of renewable energy, but, I think the costs are starting to pencil out, and they're responsive. They're getting back to us. So, I guess I've been happy. I'm glad we took it off the board, took it into the committee, worked through all the sausage making, and now we're back, and I think we're on a good track. Okay.
See what they do?
Yeah.
I think one other point that I just wanted to draw attention to, and Julie's memo, the other thing that's important, but even by switching at this point, the project still stays on schedule of getting completed next year. So this doesn't delay project completion.
I mean, we kind of should have seen it coming, because I believe ProStar is owned by the Dallas Cowboys, and this is how the Dallas Cowboys always perform. Throwing it out there. No, I told them, for backstory, I said when we first discussed it with them, they had the Dallas Cowboys Super Bowl trophies in the background. And I looked at the guy in Denver, he had a beautiful voice in fairness to him, and I said, 3 of those trophies made me cry when I was a kid. So, I was a pretty good fan.
Is there anybody from the Core Pro Star team here that wants to talk to this?
So when I reached out to Core and ProStar to provide them with a copy of today's agenda item, I did invite them to participate in the meeting, and I did not hear back. So.
Fair enough.
I mean, you did hear back from Staten, right?
I did hear back from Staten. Sam Banut, who's the president of Staten, he expressed his thanks for the district's faith in their team. And he was unfortunately on the road today and so unable to attend. But he is definitely looking forward to getting this process started and hopes to see us in the next couple of weeks. So.
Okay. Ready for a motion?
Would you like me to read it?
Yes, please.
I am requesting that the board direct staff to cease negotiations with Core and ProStar for a power purchase agreement and license agreement for a solar project at the wastewater treatment plant, and to direct staff to continue negotiations with Staten Solar Corporation for the power purchase agreement, license agreement, and project details for a solar project at the wastewater treatment plant.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And that motion passes unanimous.
Okay. Don't hang up, Julie, because it looks like you're involved in 60. Well,
I will stay out here. Tim, are you taking the lead on this?
Tim, is this
I
your
don't
last
know,
board meeting?
I don't know if it's a good idea or not, because I can tell Nick's still upset that I'm here. I didn't know he was in as low as Thornton County.
I was getting Tennessee next,
I can see the disappointment already, but I'll go ahead and give it a try, Julie, but I may need some backup here. So, today, just before this meeting, we met with Dave and Kelly, the Finance Committee, to discuss converting 2 limited term positions in customer service and the 2 limited term positions in engineering. These positions consist of a meter technician, a customer service representative, a staff engineer, and a project coordinator. These positions have been in limited term status since 2016. The limited term customer service representative position is currently vacant, and the staff engineer is expected to be vacant by the end of July. So over the years, we have had to adjust our organizational structure to accommodate our complex metering system and our CIP projects due to significantly increased workloads. These adjustments have proven that making the positions permanent is necessary for the customer service department and the engineering department to operate in a more effective and efficient manner. Most of these positions have seen a high turnover rate over the years. There have been fewer applications because of limited term positions expire in 2 years, which, by the way, does expire in June of 2024. And unfortunately, even now, we are seeing that our permanent positions are becoming difficult to fill with qualified staff due to housing crisis and child care costs in our community. So due to these challenges, staff is recommending that now is the time to make these positions permanent. And as a reminder, the salaries for these positions have been accounted for in the continuing 10-year plan, and no additional costs are expected because of converting them from limited term to a full-time position. Have any questions?
Anything from the finance
well,
committee?
I think that Dave and I were comfortable with the information that Paul Hughes and Tim and everybody provided us with, and I believe we are recommending.
That's right. This, the metering program out of work, and that work's not going to go away. It's the meters need to be worked long into the future, and the data come out, and it's got to be worked. And so I guess maybe initially the board thought that it made sense to sunset those positions, but at this point they look like they're needed in the long term. The finance committee agreed with staff on that.
Okay, if you like it.
We like it.
Okay, with that, the requested board action is to authorize staff to convert the limited term positions to permanent as follows. 1 for the meter technician, 2 for the customer service representative, 3 for the staff engineer, and 4 for the project coordinator.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And that motion passes unanimous.
1 Dallas.
Jason, 6D, the issuance of a special use permit.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jason Blaze. I oversee our water use facility in Alpine County. And I'm here to say I do not need any money today. I'm just going to read through what's on paper here and then offer for any Q&A you guys might have to help maybe make more sense so you guys can understand what we're trying to accomplish here.
Yeah, we have a map if there's interest.
I do have copies if you guys want these now or
Sure.
anytime.
That'd be great, yeah.
Thank you.
What was the guidance here?
Do you need one?
So what we have a neighboring property owner. Her name is AD-HOC, and she owns property adjacent to district property just north of us. She's asking for temporary emergency egress to a portion of district property on Diamond Valley Ranch. She's going to be organizing, promoting, and holding a 3-day music festival on her property in Alpine County. It will be on June 24th, 25th, and 26th of this year. There's a maximum capacity for this music festival of 300 people. There's a maximum capacity for overnight camping that will include 44 tents and 10 RVs.
300. Not very many.
Helpful.
And how we're getting here, a little bit of background is, for her to get this accomplished, she had to apply for a special event permit with Alpine County. And there was a condition on the permit that was requiring her to have a secondary emergency exit from her property in the event of emergency. I was contacted by a member of Alpine County to give me her information, to reach out, discuss with her what her exact needs were. So I met with her in person on her property and went to the exact location which she was wanting to get access to the district property and what their planned route was for that access and the reason behind it. So if you look at the map in your hand, as you look at the map, the top of the paper would be north, the bottom would be south. You note on there, you'll see the Hellman property. And then if you look just gently to the southwest, you'll follow a highlighted trail, and it says Barlow Road exit. That highlighted trail would be the route that would be utilized in the event of emergency. So that's approximately 4,500 feet, and Erie Hellman would be required to mark out this pathway. There would be markings on the trail that would be visible both day and night should this have to be used. And there's essentially a permit that has been put together that we're asking for board approval to grant us to be able to pass that along to her for a fee of $2,500.
Maybe I'll just add a couple additional things. The permit that's been put together with Jason and John requires them to have insurance. So that standard insurance, we check with Lois that we needed from JTIA. That's in the agreement. There's an indemnity provision in the agreement. The route across district property would only be used if the primary access route is unavailable, and it would be pedestrian only, no vehicles. So people would have to walk out. So the likelihood that it will ever be used, probably slim enough, but and as Jason pointed out, this is a condition of the county. So I think it's pretty straightforward. John, do you have any other thoughts on this?
No, I think this is a good permit. Thanks for putting this together. I think we're being a good neighbor to Tahoe County and this particular property owner. We did incur some costs to get to this point on the district side. We're probably not totally recovering that with this $2,500, but a lot of that work was research work if we applied to future events, such as this event recurring in future years. So that's kind of, we put all that together to come up with the permit and permit cost. Seems like a good deal. I think the Hellmans are happy with our progress on this. Yeah, maybe in the out years, we could reduce the cost. Exactly. Yeah. Now, are they going to, if the route gets used, will they walk it the next day and pick up all the garbage?
Yeah, that's a condition in the permit that we would be issuing them. They would have to come in afterwards and leave it as they found it.
And this area was burned over during the Tamarack, is that correct?
No.
That was not.
Yeah, this area is the part of our property called jungle, by the way.
Oh, okay.
So take a look at that tomorrow.
All right. And so is it realistic that they would be walking if there was a serious like fire or something that comes into there?
Yeah, it's realistic. I mean, I've been out there on foot a number of times for various reasons, and we have an established road, albeit unimproved, it's a dirt road. There's an established route that easily be followed.
Is the road in good condition?
For a dirt road, yes.
Accommodate an RV or some other vehicle?
It's not set forth that it would be able to accommodate an RV, not that we're allowing that it would be set forth in the permit. We keep, we go out there in vehicles, we have tractors, we have various equipment that we take out there, so the roads accommodating.
Jason, I apologize, I didn't read the permit, but are there ADA requirements if they have mobility challenged people? Can they bring a golf cart, or do they have any way to egress this route with,
Yes, there's nothing specific that speaks to ADA, but this route is traversable with anything with wheels.
Yeah, they haven't indicated that there's any ADA or other requirements they need for the road.
yeah, I would think just, it should be implied, if they've got somebody that needs to be evacuated, that they can use a wheeled vehicle to get them out there on our route.
I guess I would just comment that this is kind of a good neighbor thing that we're doing. We're supporting their economy by, providing alternative access or whatever to you guys. So I guess that's a good thing, despite what's going on right now in Tahoe County.
Any other questions, comments?
We're good. All right, read the requested board action.
Okay. Requested board action is to approve the issuance of a special use permit to Avery Hellman to allow attendees of the Woolly Star Music Festival to use an existing unimproved road across a portion of Diamond Valley Ranch in the event of an emergency.
So moved.
Second.
It's not what's up, right?
Not yet.
I actually got him a VIP pass for going away present. So I didn't want to really surprise. We'll start there.
Blue grass, your favorite.
Thank you.
What's that? I don't know exactly.
Okay, that moves us to approval of payment claims. I Move approval of payment of claims in the amount of $2,015,299.73.
Second.
A motion and a second.
Okay, that brings us to standing and ad hoc committee and liaison reports. Anybody?
I have a few.
As you heard, the finance committee had a meeting. But we know how that turned out.
Quick rundown. Yeah, Finance Committee met right prior to this meeting, just to go over the staffing issue. We have, yesterday, John and Shelley and I attended the Tahoe Water Suppliers lunch up on the North Shore. I guess nothing of note to report there, other than that was meet and greet.
You met my oldest daughter.
Their 20th anniversary. 20th anniversary. Yeah. And then tomorrow there's a visit to the PURVEYOR. I'll be attending. And then, yeah, I'm ashamed as well. And then on the 9th, we have Aqua leadership is coming here to the district to meet with us. So I plan on being in attendance at that. And then I'll just quickly, DORADO Water Agency, nothing to report there other than we have a meeting coming up on the 8th.
I'll just say it's nice to have Chris.
Yeah, and I have no report for them.
Okay. And no other member reports?
I've got one. Just last week I attended the International Association of Wildland Fire, and it was a very good conference on fire and climate. And basically everybody that I saw presentations from related to kind of projections for fire risk and fire hazard, fire threat throughout California and the West is likely to continue and likely to be exacerbated by atmospheric rivers moving through and creating massive amounts of precipitation. Anyway, so just let's just keep on going where we're going in terms of what we're doing to harden our facilities and do fuel production, things like that in and around our facilities, and doing whatever we can to prepare for the next event because it's very likely to happen. And then also just to announce that maybe for Jeff and Jim that we have a webinar coming up. We're developing a wildfire forecasting, near-term wildfire forecasting tool, and we are unveiling our 2022 version of the forecasting tool. So I'm not sure if you guys got that invitation, but I just wanted to announce it to anybody else that might be interested. It's a good platform to go to and when there is an active fire, if you're just interested in tracking conditions on the ground.
Yeah, thanks for passing that on.
Yeah.
You share that.
Sure.
I was just going to note, I'm going to be out the second board meeting in August.
Okay, staff attorney report. I guess we have a couple of staff reports.
We have a couple of staff reports. We'll start off with Jeff and Heidi.
We need a little more money than usual.
So this is the time of year when we usually go out to bid for our chemical contracts. And we have to have these chemicals in order to perform our core functions in the wastewater and water treatment. So we have 4 contracts, 3 sodium hydrochloride and 1 polymer. This last year we added a clause so that if we needed to, we could add extend the contract for an additional year if we could come to terms, agree to terms. We discussed in-house whether or not we wanted to do this and decided based on the demand for chemicals, the volatility in the supply chain, as well as world events and the history of the reliability of our current suppliers, that we would reach out to see if they'd be interested, and they all were. So, yeah, it got kind of interesting when we started receiving proposals. They asked if we wanted annual. Most of these companies are not doing full year contracts. They're breaking them quarterly, semi-annually, just because of the volatility in the chemicals, the fuel prices, the labor situations, the locality, everything plays into it huge these days. So,
We're really having a hard time guarantee pricing for more than 6 months even.
yeah, for more than, well, they really would like to do it for 3 months. So, anyways, yeah,
It's just so unstable. Like we all know, the prices, coming to you guys and telling you we have price increases. It's like everybody knows what's going on in the world. And several of the world events are factoring into these particular chemicals. So we only use 2. The 4 contracts are 3 hypo and 1 polymer. So we use in the plant, in my tours, I talk about how wastewater is made up of solids and water. And so we need 1 chemical polymer to deal with the solids, and the hypo is to disinfect the water. And then the other 2 contracts are for the field systems where they do the same thing, disinfection with hypo. So we buy them in different volumes. In the plant, we're getting full-on tanker trucks, semi-truck trailer deliveries. And I believe, if we were to look at it from their point of view, there's so much uncertainty. They have a hard time making quotes for long periods, We always come to you guys at this time of year and we do a fiscal year contract. And the thing that, one of the reasons I'm here is to point out the importance of, the use of the chemicals, but also the importance of us having a reliable, stable supply. So these vendors that we're dealing with are major manufacturers. They actually supply other vendors. And so we're kind of getting them from the source. We understand that there is instability in delivery capabilities. Some other people we've talked with are having a hard time actually securing deliveries. And Olin, the case, the major polymer, the hypo vendor, told us they have other companies they're not under contract with reaching out to them for supply. So they're the big ones down in the Tracy area. And so we've enjoyed a long, successful relationship, tight bidding competition between these vendors. But Olin generally wins in recent years. And they're, what my position is that we're risk averse. We're very conservative when it comes to this stuff. We absolutely need these chemicals to do what we do. And so, they are willing to give us an annual quote. And I'm a proponent of doing that, locking them in basically, so we have a secure, stable supply in the coming years. There's all the drivers are a lot of the ones that you see on the news, but fuel oil and staffing is affecting transportation and manufacturing. Natural gas is used for hypo, diesel is used for transportation, all the usual things that we know about raw materials, staffing in the manufacturing plants. They're all just kind of piling up on us. So it's kind of time to decide, are we going to pull the trigger on this and commit or not? So what we're here for is next week, our next meeting. We usually bring this to you guys on consent, but we decided we'd come and give you guys a heads up in advance of that and some background, answer any questions if we can. And I think we've shared the information. Julie was going to share it with Ops Committee, and I'm not sure if it got mentioned to Finance today or not, but give you guys a little heads up that, there's big increases that we're going to have to deal with, and kind of is what it is, in my opinion. I don't know. We've done a bunch of back and forth and communications with these different vendors. We've postured and, everything but pleaded for the best deal we can get. And we think this is it. We have been talking with Paul about it too, so he's looped in. But they're so critical. We can't operate without them.
Costs are going up pretty heavily in terms of percentage, but as a percentage of the district budget, it's not massive.
No.
What do you think is the approximate value of these chemicals?
Well, I think, she had a table, but we're, for the bulk hypo, which is probably, is by far our biggest,
The biggest thing.
the biggest, it's, $260,000 for a year. So that's, basically over double, we're almost double what we budgeted.
Last year.
Yeah. And we've done everything that we can to be efficient with them. I mean, I can't speak for the field, but I know what we do in the plant. We've changed around our operations, and now we disinfect filter effluent, so like next to final effluent, so the demand is lower, and it's an efficiency that we implemented a few years ago, so there's no room really to work that side of it. But you have to have it. You have to disinfect or you're not going to meet permit requirements. And same in the water system, obviously, they use it for the same thing in drinking water.
So they're unwilling to negotiate an annual agreement with us?
No, they actually are. So the bulk hypo did, and they gave us a quarterly offer, and then it had some, escalation language to it, up to 10% escalation per quarter to a cap of 20% over a year. And the difference in the quarterly price and the annual price was 7%. So we're more at risk doing the quarter approach. They're actually expecting these costs to go up, like transportation and diesel fuel and things like that. They actually don't think that we've topped out yet on that. So they're trying to protect themselves. So the difference in the quarter deal and the annual deal is not that much. We don't have to deal with the 20% cap potential. We'll lock them in for the year. And, and then next year we'll regroup and rebid. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of bidders in either of these chemicals, and not a lot of vendors that supply our area. So we've enjoyed a very competitive bid process for both these chemicals, and that's good and bad, I guess, if you even have any competition. But it's not like there's a bunch of different sources available to us.
Now, what they're describing, what I mean, they're describing is being felt in a lot of other district and authorities in California. That prices are really unstable right now. As an example, one of our clients is a large regional water supplier for their surface water treatment plant. They have had to go to, the vendor would extend the contract, but would only extend it with quarterly pricing. And because they said they can't quote because their prices are so unstable for the raw materials to produce. And so this is something that's being felt certainly across California. And it's really, it may not be a big portion of everyone's budget, but as you said, it's really important. You can't operate without it. So I think being able to get an annual contract from them is really good.
And we're still working on the one on Thatcher that does the field stuff.
Yeah, the totes and the smaller.
We've experienced the same thing in local agencies. We've been actually discussing this with each other, and people are like, stunned and reaching out to others for corroboration that we're experiencing the same thing. And of course we are. And then luckily for us, we only use these two chemicals because there's another one that North Shore uses called ferric chloride. And the same thing was happening with them, but luckily for us, we don't use that chemical. So, yeah, there's a lot of substantiating information, I think, that it's not just us, it's just the world. And on one of the chemicals on the polymer, a portion of it are a couple of little surcharges that they put in addition to the regular bid price. And the hope is that as things stabilize, they could possibly relax those. Two different ones. No guarantee of that, but we would have a little leverage to discuss that, pitch it to them, So this is coming your way next meeting, and we just wanted to give you a heads up.
I just one quick question.
Yes.
The inputs for these chemicals, are they sourced in North America, internationally? Where are these inputs coming from?
I think. Well, actually, some of the raw materials in polymer, I think, can come from Europe. The little molecules that they use, it's a synthetic thing that they mix with emulsion oil, and that's how we get it. It's so there's an oil component to it too. But I believe the chlorine and caustic soda, sodium hydroxide, are the only two things that are used to make sodium hypochlorite. Problem with the chlorine is kind of obvious that it's a disinfectant for hand sanitizers and everything else. And such a run on that stuff that prices have been going up the entire time, since COVID. And the other thing that I'm not sure if we mentioned, but these guys have honored their price quotes with us for this past year, and so they haven't done a force majeure on us. They could have just jammed us and say this is beyond our control, and have to raise your prices, and so we appreciate that. And but so it's good and bad. But chlorine is the main. I think we saw is 160% increase in. These companies have also supplied us with a bunch of corroborating data, producer price index stuff and fuel oil prices, and actually two different companies supplied us the same data. Yeah, and so they're trying to.
160% year.
Yeah, just the chlorine. That's the main chemical in the sodium hypochlorite.
Hey Jeff, can you talk just for a minute about something we talked about the other day? The price differences, the per gallon price difference between the bulk versus the totes and the drums, and since it's such a significant difference, why do you still recommend not just buying everything in bulk?
Well, there'd be so the bulk cost, if we go with the annual proposal, it's $1.92 a gallon, and we discussed years ago the idea of buying in bulk and doing some processing in-house and filling up the smaller containers in-house. And we opted not to do that because it's a hazmat, a bunch of certifications and risk, chemical spills, all that handling that we would prefer to leave with the people that do chemicals. So that was the decision that's been made in the past. I still agree with that. But the numbers, that it costs for the totes, which is like 330 gallons, I believe. This is for the field. It's $6.89 a gallon for that. So it's like triple the cost of the bulk. And $5.03 in the drums for the field. And they use different quantities at different locations. But I think we're paying for manpower, labor, specialized labor to offload these at those facilities. They're actually pumping off, I think.
Yes,
Yeah. Jeremy's shaking his head. So we just we're not in the chemical business, and we deal with them under controlled circumstances. We pump and pipe, and we're not actually handling it. So that's still, in my opinion, the way to go. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I just wanted the board to hear that explanation. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you guys.
Thank you guys.
And since I'm here, you don't get to see me very often, so I don't see money very often. I was gonna just quickly update you guys on something that's actually kind of cool, I think. And that's that the raw wastewater testing for COVID is being sponsored by the CDC, and there's a long history of that. I've been on the COVID management team ever since the beginning, and all through, as soon as this came up and the research and the testing and the science actually was evolving to be able to test wastewater for COVID, I've been going to webinars and participating on those, and all along until now. We had decided that we're not really a good candidate for that. The focus was branches of people's collection systems where you had prisons, correctional facilities, universities, that had people living on site. So things like that, so that they could kind of predict trends in segments of the population. So then that evolved to, they're just basically testing whole systems now. And based on the tourist component of our system, the makeup of it was not really reflective in data, and possibly trends was actually debatable how valuable that even was at the time. And so with people that were doing the testing and the people that were running the program, everybody agreed we're not really as good a candidate for that until now. And so the thing that changed is the home testing for COVID. So the California Department of Public Health has reached out to the various counties, county health officers, and asked them to make a new effort to reach out to wastewater entities in their jurisdictions to see if they might actually be willing to do this if they hadn't been already. And so Nancy Williams is our county health officer, and she contacted me and EID. We're the only two agencies that she reached out to. And Barton actually reached out to us too, and by that time I already knew we were aiming at doing this. So they were happy to hear that, and they're looking forward to hearing any data and trends that we come up with. But Dan and I met with Nancy, an epidemiologist, and actually informed them quite a bit about the whole process, because they really weren't that aware of it. And then so I shared the whole background of our decision-making process thus far, that, we didn't think we're really a good candidate, and a lot of the information that came out of this might not be actionable for El Dorado County. And back in those days, they were thinking they would use this as actionable information. But what they really were using was the testing data that they were getting from the normal sites, the testing sites. So what's happened now with the home testing is nobody's reporting it to anybody, and they're not getting any data. And so that's the only data there is. The best data they have as far as trends is possibly the wastewater treatment plants. And it's getting to be more and more in the news. And so, I've been asked all along until now why we weren't doing it, and I explained all that process to people, even staff. But now it's our opinion that we will help them out with this. They've asked if we would. And really the thing is that the RNA that is shed from humans when they have COVID, it varies. It's not correlative. The numbers of RNA particles to humans infected, there's no good correlation. It varies from person to person. So the value of it is in trends. So, you look at the same system, and the makeup of our system, our tourism, or the people that contribute to our system change on a weekly basis. So it's not the same people, but it's the same system, and they're happy to get any information on trends they can. And it's free. The CDC is sponsoring this and paying for everything, so they're sending us test kits. We're going to sample the raw wastewater, the whole thing. We're not doing portions of the system. We're doing the whole headworks using the sampling system we already have. And Dan collects those samples on a daily basis already, so we're just going to take a little bit of it and ship it off to them for testing. And then the information is going to be populated on a desk, what do you call it, like a CDC website dashboard. That's what I was trying to think of. And people can look at trends. You can pick on areas, click on areas. We're not going to be identified by name, but if you zoom in on the map close enough, you can see who we are. And and it's not intended it'll be actionable other than just to inform them on trends increasing or decreasing. And the cool thing about the wastewater, the shedding from the humans, is that happens up to about 6 days before a person realizes they're infected. So you get a little bit of advanced notice on the trend. So anyway, we're going to do that, and we thought, take the opportunity to share that with you guys, and so that you know what's going on, and we'll all be able to click on websites and see how we're doing.
I think that's great, and I appreciate you doing that. I think anything that gives us some indication of exposure, people coming through town or whatever, so this is good information. I'm glad you guys are pursuing it.
Cool, thanks. Thank you guys.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, Shelley has something for us? On the water conservation front. Thanks, Zach.
Good afternoon. So I've been up here before talking about it, but it just got approved, so I wanted to give you a little bit of background before press releases go out. So in March, the governor directed the State Water Board to consider adopting emergency regulation for urban water conservation. And last week, the Water Board did adopt it. So how that is going to affect us is starting June 10th, for a year, irrigation of ornamental grass on business properties will be banned. So that doesn't include irrigating trees and shrubs, and it doesn't include schools or parks or grassy areas for community gathering or civic engagement. So that's the biggest impact. The other impact is that it all water districts have to implement the level 2 of their water shortage contingency plan. So this is something that we recently adopted. For us, our level 2 is what our normal watering restrictions are all the time. So it won't impact our residential customers. We'll still have the 3-day-a-week watering restrictions, and, prevention of water waste. So that's going to happen. The state is working on, the State Water Board is working on a frequently asked questions, because I think there's going to be questions for, HOAs or businesses further defining this ornamental turf restriction. And so our requirement as a water utility in California is to help message this and direct folks to the state's information on it. So that is a comment. Any questions?
And we're doing a press release.
Yeah, so sending out a press release locally, this is the time of year where people are cutting grass seed down and sod down, and so want to make sure that businesses aren't buying sod or grass seed when they're going to be required to turn off irrigation for grass. Our press release obviously is going to highlight our drip buyback program. If businesses or residents, of course, are interested in taking advantage of that, as well as our free water-wise landscape consultation. A lot of people have irrigation systems that's designed to water their grass and their trees, and so now that they can't water grass but can water trees, we'll be there to help support how we can give advice on modifying systems. So yeah, we'll see that in the news. I mean, that's news statewide, and for some water districts, that level 2 in the shortage contingency plans has a bigger impact to their community. We were involved with the Association of California Water Agencies, as well as a subgroup of water agencies that have sufficient supply to meet their demand, requesting exemptions, alterations, adjustments to these regulations. That didn't happen, but it was worth trying. So that's the not as exciting news. Yeah, go for it, Nick.
So what is the exact impact again?
The main impact is that businesses, so it's institutional, industrial, and commercial, so essentially for our region, businesses that have ornamental grass, so grass that isn't a ball field, playground, civic gathering space for people, cannot water their grass starting June 10th. And that rule is in effect for a year. Or unless we get a massive one.
One quick thing as I thinking about turf watering and so forth. I was through the Keys over the weekend, and as you look towards the Keys and kind of the state of the turf, I know in the past we've talked about interactions with them about what to do next, essentially. Right, there's a lot of options, and you might know, okay, but just if any discussions like that have taken place with kind of the Keys, especially kind of our relationship with them and how that might extend in the future.
Do you want to answer that question, or do you want me? So yes, the Keys hired a landscape contractor to come up with templates for Tahoe-friendly landscaping. That TRPA helped fund that work, and last summer when Jennifer Cressy was on board as our water efficiency technician, she was helping with that document as well as the link to Save Lake Tahoe. I haven't seen the finalized document, but I hear that it's that.
Yeah, there's a landscaping guide that was put out. It's really nice. Lots of good ideas and plant lists and things like that. Trying to get people to, replant something far less. The other thing that's important there is a city ordinance that says something to the effect that if you're going to replant grass or if you're going to plant grass, that it can be no more than 25% of your landscapable area. That overlays us all. So I'm not sure if we highlight that in our rules, but it does limit the amount of new grass that can go in or replanted grass?
Right, that falls under, the model water efficiency landscape ordinance is my guess. I apologize, I hear that's an acronym always. Yeah, and it speaks to new construction and then big overhauls. You know, the district allows a watering exemption for new vegetation, and what we often see is, you know, people planting trees, people reseeding grass, and someone who saw this one.
I wonder if that's worth mentioning in this press release.
Nick, in regard to your question on the keys, it was a couple weeks ago, we had a conference call with one of the keys consultants that's helping them do an evaluation of the different options in which is best to offer them. And the discussion, they've interviewed district staff. I was on the call. And some of the discussions were about if the district was to take over the key system, what's going to be required. And some of the discussions were that obviously being metering and complying with the other district requirements for conservation and so forth and laws and that. So that stuff is being considered in the keys analysis of what the option choose.
I mean, I would, to that point, what I, as board member, what I would say to that is not looking for where the keys is today, but where the locals have existed in this community for a long time. So they got to catch up to where we are. It's not, especially because all the grass is dead today. I mean, I would look, and speaking for myself, look to, strict compliance regulation as to where we need to be with turf reductions. I mean, the writing on the wall for these, this is going to become more frequent, not less. So why not just solve the problem? I don't know.
And that's what I'm trying to pitch to our local businesses, residents, and even our public partners of, this year it's commercial properties can't water their grass for a year, and what might come down the pipe further down. We have a lot of grant funding right now for the turf buyback programs, so if we can help offset the cost for our customers to transition to a more tile-friendly landscape, we have the funding for that right now.
So the turf buyback program, or turf buyback program, does that require the landowner to plant a bunch of trees instead?
It's it requires removing the turf, capping your irrigation system or transitioning it to drip. And then the third is the canopy cover. There needs to be some vegetation planted. So in the area, the canopy cover at maturity has to cover 20% of the area removed. So for most grassy areas, if you plant a tree or two or shrub or two, you get there. It doesn't take much to hit that.
Yeah, when I went through the process, there was a place I bought the plants from, kind of had an outline tool where you could kind of move them around. And I just bought like low-lying shrubs, and it was, easy to kind of get to that percentage.
The majority of people that do it way overplant for our requirements, so that's what they want for their landscape. Any other questions on that? The last thing is just to, in your inboxes, or I believe in front of you today, you have the invitation to the annual district potluck picnic. We haven't had something in person since 2019, so it'll be exciting to hopefully be in person. That's Tuesday, June 28th. It's at lunchtime, it's at noon. We'd love to invite you to join us if you'd like. This year we're trying something new. We're going to host it down in the lower shops instead of the boardroom, and we'd love to see you.
Bring your skateboards. No, let's
Shelley, one other thing in our packet, describe the helping hands summary, and it just kind of goes through the metrics for 2021. I was not aware that this existed, and that maybe that's just my own density, but, if you could, I don't know if this goes out to homeowners or what, but it'd be nice to know how people can donate to this. This looks like a good program.
About once or twice a year, Susan used to be here, she would send out information about folks who want to donate that money to us. And it actually goes to the county. The county regulates that money for us. So you have to go through the county to apply for the money to be applied to your water and sewer bill. Once they go through that process, it's approved, then we will get a check from the county to apply to that account. But we do a little bit of, like I said, a couple of times a year, we'll send out inserts to let people know. And to be honest with you, I don't really know what the balance is on that account now. It used to be $7,000 or $8,000, I think, that was in there.
It's on, that information's on the page that Dave is referring to.
Numbers, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll look at our public outreach on that and see if we can amplify that a little bit. For sure. Yeah, great program.
I'll get somebody right on that.
Yeah.
I'm surprised it's not more used. Seems like it's pretty late.
Well, that may be because it's not known.
Right.
Yeah, so you're really good idea.
Okay, thanks, Kelly. Got some updates here for you under staffing. I thought we were just talking, it's Tim's last day today, his last board meeting will be here until the 10th. But just thought I'd take this opportunity to thank Tim for all your work over the years. You've been a really strong advocate for our ratepayers and a really important voice, perspective for the board and for me, usually. And really an empowering leader for your staff. So congratulations and thank you. So continue with the staffing report, customer service manager. After 48 applications, 6 interviews last Thursday were our interviews. Ryan Lee was selected as our next customer service manager. So congratulations, Ryan. So sadly, this will leave a hole in engineering. Ryan's our asset management analyst, of course. So we're looking at that, talking to Steve and Julie about when and how to go after that recruitment. And kind of as we've already discussed on our action item, our current staff engineer, Aaron Zook, is planning to leave in July. So we plan to begin that recruitment next week. And we're still advertising for our next EVO, the Water Resources Manager position. And then if you recall last time, with Chelsea's move from customer service to finance, we're advertising for a customer service rep. And in our heavy maintenance department, we interviewed 4 candidates yesterday and selected Nick Puichoff, who is currently on our sewer crew. He's been cross-training with heavy maintenance department on and off over the last year, doing a great job. So congratulations, Nick. So sewer's losing someone due to retirement and someone moving to heavy maintenance. So we have 2 openings on the sewer crew right now. We're going to start that recruitment tomorrow or next week at the latest. And then under our repair water supervisor, the application period for this closed on June 8th, or will close on June 8th, and interviews are planned for June 15th. So lots going on with recruitments, retirements, and promotions. So next I want to talk about a couple of meetings I had with the U.S. Forest Service. I met with the new Forest Supervisor, Eric Walker, twice last week. First on Monday with the Tahoe Water Infrastructure for Fire Suppression Partnership. That's Tahoe City and North Tahoe PDs and IBIT. We wanted to discuss the funding mechanism and schedule for the LTRA funding coming down the line this year. He's looking into the mechanics, how much money he's getting, and how to disperse it. It's being handled through the Vallejo office at the Forest Service. And at this point, we're thinking late summer, early fall for those funds to see its way to the water partnership. Then the next day on Tuesday, we met again, our staff, Forest Service and district staff. I provided a presentation on the district, who we are, what we do, talked about some of our past and present partnerships with the Forest Service, and provided an overview of our water, wastewater, and recycled water systems. I also showed them, and thanks for the maps too, that 44% of the district service area is Forest Service land, and that they have 1,980 parcels in our service area, and many of these have sewer laterals in place that contribute to I&I in our system. So we talked about the I&I in our system and the ability of the Forest Service to provide funds to cap those sewer connections. And I think we've run into a wall with that in previous years, but I feel like Eric and the other staff that came in really understand that they have some responsibility in these urban parcels that are connected to the sewer system essentially. And they'll be looking at some funding sources for this, and we're pretty hopeful that we'll get some. This could be $1 to $2 million over time. So we'll continue to work with Forest Service on this and other potential funding sources, especially funding assistance for some of our CIP projects in the forest areas, Baldwin, Oak, and Kiva Beach areas. I thought it was really a great kickoff meeting with the Forest Service and Eric Walker, and I think we're going to have a really great working relationship with them under this new leadership. Next, just a real brief update with Lucan's Water. We met with Jen Lucans yesterday, and Lucans has been requesting state water board funding for water system improvements over the past year or so. They're having some delays at the state. The state wants Lucans to really submit a more robust consolidation analysis to support their funding request. So this is really just a heads up from Jen. The state is really pushing for more small water system consolidations overall. Jen is going to look at the details of the state request, and I expect we'll hear back from Jen later this month as to really what type of coordination is needed from the district in this regard. So more to come on that. And Lake Tahoe Community College, I was just talking to Jeff DeFranco. He asked that we sign on to a couple of project support letters to the state for potential funding for the college this year. One of these projects is for a proposed student housing project, and the second one is for a public safety training center. So these are both time sensitive, and so I did sign on as a district support for these two projects. I expect the board would be fully supportive of these efforts. And then finally, the St. Joseph's Land Trust. They had a groundbreaking today on Riverside in Alameda. I think the board is aware of this organization. They're building deep restricted affordable housing and workforce housing around town, among other things. But this morning there was a groundbreaking ceremony on Riverside for the current project, which is really 3 separate houses, 2 2-bedroom units and 1 3-bedroom units. And they already have the owners ready to occupy and get the loans necessary for those 3 homes. The district assisted this project by transferring in sewer units and also transferring in the necessary water connections that Tim found from abandoned city parcels. So water and sewer connections were really no cost to this affordable housing project.
See, John, earlier you talked about the Forest Service and all their connections that were never used. Are those sewer connections that could be transferred?
Those are sewer connections that could be transferred into our program.
Yeah, that's a substantial number.
Yes. And Shane joined me at the groundbreaking today. So good snacks. Great snacks. A lot of familiar
Really big
snacks.
I didn't have any snacks.
And that is all I have today.
Okay, so we see the past and future meetings and events, and we do have a little bit of closed session. So we will go straight into closed session.
Of closed session into open session with nothing to report, and this meeting is adjourned.
You guys are so awesome.